Have you ever wondered why a world-class golfer misses a simple 3-foot putt to win a major? Or why a superstar striker with the game on the line just skies a penalty kick right over the bar? It's one of the greatest dramas in all of sports, isn't it? That razor's edge between glory and heartbreak. Well, today we're going to dive into the fascinating science behind why our minds and our bodies react so differently when everything is at stake.
So, let me ask you a question. What is the absolute loneliest moment in sports? Seriously, think about it. Is it the walk from the center circle for a penalty shootout? Or maybe a tennis player facing match point? You know, that silent walk to the free throw line with the clock at 0. These are moments of just pure isolation, where all the training, all the teamwork, it just melts away. It all comes down to one person, one single action, and a mountain of pressure.
Now here's the crazy part. This isn't just a feeling. It is backed by hard data. Researchers analyzed thousands and thousands of penalty kicks, and what they found is amazing. Look at this. When a player shoots to tie the game, to equalize, they score over 90% of the time. But when they have to score to avoid losing the game for their team, the success rate just tanks. It plummets to below 60%. Think about that. It's the same player, the same skill, the same 12 yards. The only thing that's changed is the psychological weight of that moment.
So, to understand that dramatic drop-off, we really have to look under the hood at the internal mechanics of what athletes call choking. It's that awful moment where, for some reason, your brain seems to betray the body that you've trained for thousands of hours.
So what is choking, really? The official definition is key here. It's not about a lack of skill. Actually, it really only happens to experts. It's the breakdown of a highly practiced automatic skill. You know, a skill so ingrained you don't even have to think about it anymore. And that's where the problem starts, when, under all that pressure, you suddenly do.
And that's the great paradox, isn't it? In the one moment, you need all that muscle memory to take over, your conscious brain decides to jump in and help, but it only, and I mean only, gets in the way. There's a name for this process. Researchers call it reinvestment. So here's how it works. First, you've got the high-pressure situation. That causes your attention, which should be on the target, to shift inward onto yourself. So instead of just shooting the free throw, you start thinking, okay, bend the knees, keep the elbow in, remember to follow through. You are consciously trying to control something that works best when it's totally automatic. And just like that, the natural rhythm, the fluidity, the timing, it's all gone.
But wait, it's actually a two-pronged attack happening inside your head. It's not just that you're overthinking the motion. There's another theory called processing efficiency theory, and it basically argues that the anxiety itself, you know, that little voice saying, "What if I miss?" starts eating up your brain's working memory. Just think of it like having way too many apps open on your phone. Your brain literally has less processing power to spend on the actual task, which slows down your focus and your decision-making.
Okay, so we've got the internal mechanics, this sort of mental meltdown. But there's another layer to this. It's not just about what's happening inside your head, but also how your brain frames the entire situation. And for this, we have to step out of pure psychology for a second and into the world of behavioral economics.
This one quote from Nobel laureates Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky is the absolute key. Their work on prospect theory totally changed how we think about human decisions. And the most important insight is right here. We are fundamentally hardwired to feel the pain of a loss way more intensely than we feel the pleasure of an equal gain. And this explains so much about what happens on the field. When an athlete is playing to win something, they're in a gain mindset. They play more freely, right? They're more aggressive. But when they're playing not to lose, they switch into a loss mindset. They get conservative. They start aiming for the safe options. They aren't trying to score anymore. They are desperately trying not to miss. And that's exactly why you see penalty takers under massive pressure aim for the center of the goal, which is statistically a worse option.
And we're not talking about a small difference here. The research suggests that the sting of losing is about twice as powerful as the joy of winning. Let that sink in for a second. Twice as powerful. That intense fear can completely warp an athlete's strategy from what's optimal to what just feels safe.
But of course, it's not all about failure and choking. Let's flip the script. What about the other side of the coin? You know, when an athlete gets in the zone and it feels like they just can't miss. Well, that brings us to the very tempting and often controversial idea of momentum.
The classic sports bar debate, right? Is the hot hand a real thing? If you make a few shots in a row, are you actually more likely to hit the next one, or is it all just a trick our brains play on us because we love to see patterns?
Well, the answer? It's complicated.
From a purely statistical point of view, the hot hand is often a fallacy. Researchers have shown that we see these incredible streaks in what are basically just random coin flips. But that doesn't mean momentum isn't real. It just comes in different forms. First, you have psychological momentum. Success really does breed confidence and a feeling of control, and that can genuinely boost your performance. And then there's strategic momentum. When you win a big point, you can actually force your opponent into that conservative, loss-averse mindset we just talked about, which gives you a huge tactical advantage.
So, knowing all this, the risk of overthinking, that deep fear of loss, the power of momentum, how do the world's best athletes consistently pull it off when the lights are brightest? Well, it turns out they have a playbook for the mind. The biggest thing is they train their minds just as rigorously as they train their bodies. They use pre-performance routines, like a basketball player's exact dribble sequence before a free throw, to create a sense of control and calm. They practice keeping their focus outward on the rim or the goal to avoid that trap of reinvestment. They even train their literal gaze. There's this technique called the quiet eye, where research shows elite athletes hold a longer, steadier gaze on their target right before they act, locking in their focus. And of course, they use mental tools like positive self-talk, turning "I'm nervous" into "I'm ready," and visualization to build up a rock-solid mindset.
And really, that's what this all boils down to. The greatest champions don't have some magic ability to make the pressure disappear. You're never going to get rid of the pressure. What they have is a highly trained ability to change their relationship with it. They've learned how to manage their attention, how to frame the stakes, and how to control their inner world, turning what could be a threat into fuel.
Which kind of leaves us with one last thought. We all face our own versions of that penalty kick, right? Maybe it's a huge job interview, a big presentation at work, or just a really difficult conversation. And perhaps the biggest lesson from the world of sports isn't about how to conquer pressure, but how to listen to it, to understand what it's telling us about our focus, our fears, and our own preparation. So is pressure really a force to be defeated, or is it a signal to be understood?